All right, let's get started. You guys can take a seat or whatever you want to do. The plan is, honestly, get as well adapted and adept at church mixing as possible. So this isn't going to be like the most comprehensive of all time, the most in-depth of all time, and not specific to your situation. But the plan is to get to the point where, mixing at church makes more sense. So I just want to talk about the role of the position first. So the role of the position, we're trying to create excellent environments at all of our campuses. So that means you're trying to mix in a way that people can connect with Jesus. And that's not the same as mixing for like a concert or something like that. For a concert, I think the goal is for people to probably have a different type of experience, maybe one that's like shock and awe in some senses. We want people to be like, oh my gosh, this is like the craziest, coolest, most intense kind of thing I've ever been to, versus church, where it's like, this is so appropriate, I could easily bring my friends to this service, right? This is so enjoyable and not too much out of the expected, right? If you give people too much beyond their expectations, you're kind of you're asking more of them than if you deliver what is according to their expectations. So what kind of things are outside of expectations? Feedback, right? Whenever we had feedback, the hope is that people don't expect feedback. So when there's feedback in our services, people are like, oh, that's one off. That's 1 point off, if you will, from your score. Other expectations that people don't have are slamming bass, like crazy slamming bass. We definitely want it to be a full mix, but we don't want slamming bass. Other expectations that we don't want, or I shouldn't say that, other things that we don't want to violate in terms of expectations, too soft is another direction. You can go the wrong way and be too quiet, right? And it's too quiet when people sing and they can't sing with their full voice, right? If people are hesitant to sing, they're like, oh man, every single person within 10 feet are gonna hear me if I sing at a full volume, So your job, that's some of the like relativity to your role, where you're like, oh man, if somebody were to sing full voice, participate all the way, would they be able to just do that comfortably? Or would it just be too awkward, right? I'm gonna cough, so a little mute. You guys, you're welcome. Anything else you guys can think of, just right off the bat? Does that kind of cover it? I think that kind of covers it. What's up, Adam?
I just always like to know how's best to mix in the stems and tracks best with live music.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
You gotta get that right too. I don't know if it goes right.
100%, yeah. So if it's all tracks, people are like, I can't even hear the acoustic guitar up there. Like what's real? What's not real? However, I think our culture is pretty desensitized to tracks. Like every concert you ever go to has tracks now. Unless it's like a jazz thing or something like that, like a very obvious. What's up, Variant?
I was going to say
Clarity of vocals, yeah, absolutely. Like understand what they're saying. Yeah, that's huge. Go ahead.
I always try to get better at is smoother transitions.
Yeah, awkward transitions can pull people out of the experience 100%. We call them cringe moments, right? Like we want to avoid the cringe. I call it secondhand embarrassment, where you're like embarrassed for the people on stage. You're like, oh, are they gonna get through this moment, So we're trying to avoid all that. So that's kind of the role. Any other questions about the role? This is a free-for-all, so go nuts if you have a question. Okay, then I'm gonna dive in here. We're gonna talk about gain staging. The first thing you do at a rehearsal every week, it doesn't matter if it's the same people, same instruments, same something, variables are changing all the time. So we're gain staging. Gain staging means you're going to this gain knob up here in the top left corner of this board, but every board has either a gain. This channel, this is on virtual sound check, so you don't see it unless it's a live channel. You only gain live signals. You don't gain virtual sound check signals, right? So that comes in with the trim. Trim is after the gain. So the gain stage is literally the actual physical wire hits a preamp after it gets plugged in, and that preamp gains it up or down. It's as simple as saying this mic gets more power right at the beginning, or this source gets more power right at the beginning. The way I think of it that's really helpful is a hose at your house. You hook up a hose to the side of your house, a spigot right there. You turn on the spigot, that's the gain. And then on the other end of the hose is like a nozzle of some kind. And you have the amount of water that actually gets to come out. The spigot is at your house, right? That's the gain. Down the hose, the nozzle's on the end, and the nozzle gives you the volume. The nozzle is like the fader. Yeah, it goes up and down. So you're trying to give yourself an appropriate amount of gain to work with the signal. The goal is that all the gains come in and hit the board at the same level. Why would we want to do that? Exactly, because your fader positions are going to be relative to your loudness. So your PA, your speakers, are set at a volume level to where, they can get pretty loud, but the nominal level of your PA is kind of like the appropriate level, which means unity gain, or 0 on your faders. It goes from minus infinity on this, it says infinity, right, 0, all the way up to the level of 0. Can you see on the board? I'm trying to, right here, this 0, right? So infinity, down infinity to 0, nominal gain. And there's always these little dots by 0 right here. And that's because those little dots are showing you that's kind of the range you want to be in for the most high definition mixing, the most resolution in your mixing. So every move, even if it's like from 0 to like tink, 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 like -4, you can move a further distance and get less change. Does that make sense? So if I go from here to here, it's not going to change very much, but I'm visually seeing it move more. Versus down here, it's 40 to infinity is right there. It's very small range. 40 to infinity, right? So every little tiny movement is going to jump a ton. See what I'm saying? So when you're all at 0 right here and your faders look like this, there's very little difference between those sounds. That's the idea. So it's incremental changes versus huge macro changes down here. If all your faders are down here, this could be a wildly different set of levels. Question?
So if you're doing that gain thing at the beginning,
Gain staging.
yeah, gain staging, do you want your faders all at 0 as your gain staging?
No, you don't even need the sound to be on as your gain staging. So we'll talk about that. So in this preamp view, every board has a view like this, the preamp view. You want the loudest signal to be right at where the yellow crosses over, generally. Generally speaking, the loudest signal, you see it right before that yellow right there? Cameron's gonna switch the view so you guys can see it officially, but he's working on other things. But that level is right here, right where it crosses into the yellow. Sorry, there's no better way to do that. I don't know how to just yell about it. It crosses, this is for a pastor speaking, right? So when Eric goes, guys, good morning, welcome, so glad you guys are here, it's right at that yellow crossing point, right? So I can do that. Stream's not gonna hear me if I do that, but I can do that. For the fader. This is before the fader in the chain, right? Audio goes from point A all the way to point B, right? It goes down the line. So it's just one single pipe all the way through. So this is the very beginning of the pipe. It is so important to gain stage, you guys. So important. And Greg, we were talking about on Thursday, you're like, oh, it's feeding back. I should turn the gain down. I'll tell you why that doesn't work in a little bit here. Because technically, you're going to get less signal. If you gain it down, if you're starting to hear feedback, you're going to get less signal. But that doesn't mean anything. That just means everything down the line is coming down. So you can't gain it down and turn it up to get less feedback. You're just going to create a new problem, right? So,
I have a quick question.
yeah, let's do it.
The meter that you were looking at in the preamp, is that the same as the sensitivity meter on the surface by the fader?
You mean down here on the board?
Yes.
No, they're completely separate.
Okay.
They're completely discrete from each other.
So when we're doing gain staging on a Thursday before rehearsal, which
Yeah.
one should we use?
The you're talking about the encoder, the spinning encoder?
No, the meter, the lights on the board that are.
Oh, they are the same.
They're,
Yeah, this he's talking about this little meter right here. You want to go to the other camera, Cameron? He's talking about, oh, maybe not. This meter here, he's talking about, is that the same as the little lights that are indicating on the board? They are the same.
Okay.
They're telling you the same thing. He's talking about these right here. But this is very hard to read. It's very small compared to this detail, right? So if you go to the preamp screen right here, you can see every board has that like view. You can see that preamp view. But again, my normal speaking voice is not gonna get all the way to the top. This is not my loudest section, right? My loudest stuff is gonna get all the way to the top. If you're gaining for their nominal speaking voice to hit that level like this, okay, there we go, that's better. And then they scream and they yell, and it clips, right? So we're protecting from clipping by gaining their loudest signal. This is the loudest signal. So we're gonna set our gain for that. I'm spinning this knob so that this turns, right? So this is our loudest signal. That way we protect from clipping. Digital clipping sounds really bad. I'll just show you real quick. If I gain this way up, we'll be able to hear some clipping. There it is, crunching like that. That's a bad sound. We want to avoid that. These boards are actually pretty amazing. They protect from that terrible sound for the most part. But you can hear what clipping sounds like. It's nasty. So go ahead.
Sorry, can you give me an example? Like, there's an electric guitar set up there with a gain sag. So is that, strumming? Is that like lead picking? Is that strumming?
It's different for every source. So you say, hey, can I get your loudest signal? Why don't you just play a chorus of a song? Why don't you just play something, your loudest patch on an electric guitar? Like if it's violin, it's tough. It's like, hey, just play as hard as you're ever gonna play. And you have to be so clear on that. Usually, musicians don't give you their loudest sound because it's kind of weird to do that right away. So what's that? Especially vocally? Yeah, especially vocals, that's true. So you're gonna do your best to gain stage, but then they do that first song run through, and that's when you can really dial it in. But you gotta be quick, right? You're going through signals, just making sure kick, snare, drum, you're going through every single signal quickly during that first song. So here's the thing, gain staging, think about it. It's the very, very beginning of the pipe. So everything down the line is affected by that gain stage. Ears, reverbs, EQs, compressors, dynamic stuff, everything gets affected. So gain is a set it and forget it. Gain has got to be a set it and forget it.
And you do gain setting before doing ears?
Absolutely. Yeah, because you change gain in the middle of a service, you're like, that's just a little too hot, let me turn that down, affects their ears. And now people are like, where'd I go? It all came down. Well, it came down because you changed the beginning of the pipe. Does that make sense? There.
What do you say to musicians who, like, how do you set their volume? What would you say?
For ears?
No, like on a bass guitar or something like that, they've got a knob that they may not know what percentage they're actually set at.
Oh, just tell them turn it all the way up. All the way up. Yeah, that's a great example. And they might want to like feather it back. But like if they're like, I need to be quieter during this section, just tell them that's my job. I'll handle that. I'll make sure you're not going to be too loud in the room. Your job is your ears and your playing. My job is the board. What's up, Earl? Hey.
I apologize if I move fast forward you.
Okay.
But specifically stage gaining.
Gain staging.
That's
Yep.
You had said, certainly head amp gain affects everything, including your ears.
Yeah.
There is also down the line in the compressor, you can add makeup gain.
Correct.
That affects the gain stage,
Correct.
but it does not affect the head.
It depends on where the insert point is for ears.
In our case, in this board,
I think it is after EQ and gain, or after EQ and compression. So it will change. It will change. So again, the pipe, you choose a point in the pipe to split off and go to ears. It's called an insert point. You can select. I'm not sure. I'd have to menu dive a little bit. Yeah, it's gonna be different for everybody. But I always suggest post gain. Post gain is where you want to split off before EQ, before compression, so that all is handled in the ears, right? So yeah, you're asking your musicians, your singers, hey, give me your loudest signal. I want to set the gain appropriately. And then they know ears aren't going to change moving forward. My ears are going to stay how they're going to stay. And then they can make adjustments and lock it in. So the next thing I want to talk, well, any more questions real quick? Are we feeling good? Tim?
so then you're running tracks, right?
Correct, yeah.
And the tracks then have whatever volume they are, so
It's a great question.
the pipe may not matter.
Yeah, it's a virtual source.
So their ears might change.
There's what change?
Their ears might change from song to song.
For tracks.
Tracks has its own setting.
But tracks have a source level too. Those faders within playback on iPads or on a computer, and those should also hit 0. So you need to pre-gain in the app, in playback, and then if you need to make adjustments to kind of post-gain set, you can do that.
So if you've got one track that's really low,
Yeah,
then that may be the one that you have to set it at.
yeah,
Pre-gain to that, and then drop the others so that they're in line. So we're back to the same thing, which is, I want to get everybody
yeah.
coming in at 0.
Yeah. So you do have a catch-22 because a lot of times tracks are grouped up. Like I think at Lehigh, they're grouped up into either a mono channel or a left and right. We want to have as much control as possible. That's why I'm trying to get out of that single mono send for tracks, because then you have to pre-mix the tracks. Say you have 8 tracks going into one mono signal. Then your one job is to make sure those tracks come in at 0. That's it. And then they're going to be pre-mixed in there how they're going to sound. And that's going to be on worship leader. Like that would be May's job to say, hey, we're just going to pre-mix them like this, like more percussion, little less pad, more keys. You just kind of pre-mix going in there, which is doable, just way less control for the mixer, right? They can't affect individual sounds. Anything else? Sweet. We're going to go on to faders and balancing. So I pulled up this track from rehearsal on Thursday, and I just want to show you guys how powerful just the faders, can you switch views here, Cam? Just the faders are, because this is your first job, is to mix the balance of the room. And then you go down the line, EQ, compression, whatever, reverb, stuff like that. First job, faders, and I'll show you why. I'm gonna turn off my mic and just mix this track real quick with just faders. So like you can see the kick here, there is we switch cam? There is nothing on the kick. No compression, no EQ. See, it's all out, compressor's out, no dynamic stuff, nothing. There's nothing on any tracks. So these are dry tracks. So I'll just mix this. you can see this snare trigger doesn't have enough gain, right? You see the snare trigger? Cam, will you switch? One more switch. Yeah. Snare trigger. It's not enough gain, so I'm really struggling to get it loud enough, right? So, that was Ryan yelling right there. I really just wanted to show you guys how close you can get with just the faders. You know what I'm saying? It's about balancing the faders. I think the tendency is to say, I got all these tools, EQ, compression, dynamic stuff, and I want to use them all. But you really should start from zero. This is the technically right way to mix, is to start from zero as far as your workflow goes. Go ahead.
So we did the gain staging, and then you mixed it, and so the faders are kind of, all in different spots on your board right now.
Yep.
And that's okay.
I mean, yeah, you got to do what you got to do in terms of making this sound. Your ears got to tell you, not your eyes. Your ears got to tell you what's right, not your eyes.
Because I think I've done in the past, okay, I'm trying to just get faders to all be at zero.
Yep, you're just trying to make them all look straight. Yeah. Yep, I've been there. But the hope is that they're close. If you gain stage correctly, they're going to be fairly close. But I was trying to tell you guys really loudly, did you see how my snare trigger here is way up loud? You can see it on the screen to the right there. It's way up high. That's because I didn't have enough gain. It was really only coming in at -10, right? We didn't have enough to work with. We didn't have enough ingredients, enough at the spigot of the house, right? That means I'm maxed out. I'm to the top. I can't get any more volume from the fader. We can get more volume down the line with what Earl's talking about, makeup gain and stuff. But in terms of visual, understanding what's going on, it's much better to just have your gain set correctly at the beginning.
So admittedly, on a Thursday, I come in with the idea and or hope.
Mm-hmm.
I never do the check the gains for the drums.
Okay.
Leave that.
They should be really close week to week.
They should be close.
Yep.
But obviously, in this case, they're not.
Right, they're different. Yeah. So, that's why you need to literally check every source. We set aside 10 minutes at Draper, or at least we used to set aside 10 minutes just to do gains and sound check, right? That's what sound check is. It's really just gain staging. So 10 minutes is enough time. It really is. You should be able to just fire through, and your band will get the hang of it. They're like, okay, I'm supposed to give them my loudest stuff. Let me just do that real quick. What's up, Varen? Yeah. Yeah. I like going channel by channel and then full kit. Because usually you play a little different when you're playing versus versus just doom, doom, just hitting the tom, you know what I mean? You're gonna hit a little harder, especially the snare, a little harder when you're playing full out. Right. So that's another problem that we'll fix. Yeah. So from up to this point, we're just setting the table. This is just pre setting things. We're just getting ready to mix. Just kind of getting our template going, you know? And then from here on out, really from here on out, it's fixing problems. So I can say, this mix actually sounds good with my faders. I'll play a little more. Just trying to listen to the snare trigger to snare mic ratio. So here's node mic. That's the trigger only. Here's the mic with the trigger. It just needs more. We don't have it. Okay. So I hear this all the time. People are like, yeah, I get it. I get the technical stuff of what you're trying to do, but what is the target? I don't have like a target that I'm aiming for in terms of this should be this level, this should be this level. I should hear this more, I should hear this less. That's kind of the hardest part of mixing. That's developing your taste, developing your what needs to be where in a mix. So we'll kind of go through it. I've set up boards now at all of our campuses, and I kind of set them up the same way in terms of weight of the mix. And I like to think of it that way. Like, what's the heaviest thing in my mix, or the most dominant thing in my mix? It's always going to be drums. Drums are always going to be the most important part of your mix because they drive the tempo. They drive the rhythmic movement of songs. And they're short. There's no legato in drums, right? There's no sustaining sounds in drums. They always decay. They always have a fall off of that waveform. Always. They're like big waveform and then down. Always. Cymbals, everything. So those things are the heaviest parts of our mix. They can be loud because they're short, right? If they're loud and long, it starts to sound overwhelming. It's way more power in your mix. So if we're loud and quick, it's okay. So that's why I set up drums at the beginning of the board. Can we show the board? Drums at the beginning of the board, bass, piano, keys, sounds, whatever. Moving on. Then I kind of get into guitars, all my guitars. There's violin here right now, but acoustic, electrics, whatever. And then tracks are their own thing. They're totally separate, like their own beast. So tracks sit here, and then vocals at the very, very end of the line, of the chain. And yes, you're doing some fader flipping to get around, especially on a board like this where you're flipping faders. All of our campuses have that fader flipping. It doesn't really matter, but I think it matters to stay the same and be consistent so that you can quickly know where things are. That's really the key. But if you're like kick, snare, bass, keys, electric guitar, snare bottom, overheads, track 1, track 2, vocal, acoustic, vocal 4, like it just is random and you can't read it really quickly. Does that make sense? So the board layout is pretty important, and we use all our colors to distinguish. You guys are all doing that. But that's how I like to set it up in terms of weight of the mix, right? So the target, I'll just go through kind of some targets real quick. Generally, the loudest things in your mix are always kick, snare, lead vocal. Those should basically be at the same level. So we'll just play those to hear those right now and see how close they are. Kick, snare, lead vocal. I'm just soloing those up so we can hear them.
Let the redeemed of the Lord lift their voices. If he's been faithful, if he's been good, sing hallelujah, sing hallelujah.
So let's see if we can pick those three things out of the mix when it's all playing.
If he's been faithful, if
What do you hear?
Is that Shauna?
It's Shauna, yeah.
She is definitely louder than the snare.
Okay.
Snare's a little soft, I think, in that mix.
Snare's a little soft in the mix. I agree. Snare's soft in the mix. And part of the reason I wasn't turning up the snare a bunch, let's just listen to it. This is all we got on the trigger. That's all the way up. Here's without it. With it. Barely adding anything, right? Go ahead, Richard. Yes. Because if I had it all the way maxed up loud with the gain set appropriately, then we'd hear it fine. It'd be loud. Why am I not turning up the snare top, the mic?
Because you're going to get bleed from the other.
Yes, ton of bleed. That's why I can't just crank that, and I'll show you why. You can hear those cymbals like getting out of freaking control, like immediately. So there's ways to kind of help us out. There's ways to solve problems, right? So now this part of the stage mixing, we're just solving problems. So we're just gonna go through and solve problems, right? Any questions so far? Because now we're gonna dive in a little bit. Yeah, Draper's the only one with a trigger right now. Yeah. How much? Very much depends. So you could solve one drum trigger issue with like $350, $400 and get the unit, one of the units that we have, which is a snare mic, a mic and a trigger combination in one unit. And it splits the channels so you can have control of both. It's very cool. It's called a Roland RT, and they don't make them anymore. And they were $100 when I bought them back in the day, and now they're only used, and they're $350, $400 on eBay and stuff like that. And you have to, and they're always, they're 5 years old. You can't find a new one anymore. They're all old. So we got lucky and bought them right away, and we have like one backup, and they're breaking, and we're resoldering them and keeping them alive and stuff like that. But yeah, you could do a trigger, but I'll do it with and without the trigger and show you guys why you don't need it. In fact, that'd probably be more helpful to not have it for our uses today. Okay, so order of operations, gain staging, setting your faders. The next thing is filtering. What's filtering? Not quite, but that's a problem I'm trying to solve. But filtering itself.
Filtering out
Yeah,
some frequency.
correct. Correct, yeah. So on here, can we switch so we can see? Yeah, on here it says filter. And a filter is just a high pass and a low pass. High pass is on the low frequencies. This is why people get confused like I just did. High pass means the highs pass through. You let the highs through. Low pass, you let the lows pass through. These are gray. They're not on right now, right? But like if we go to the kick drum, here's the filter for the kick drum. I'll just show you what it does. So I'm gonna put in a low pass filter on the kick drum. Yes, sorry, the high pass filter. Gosh. Low cut, yeah.
Wow.
So you can hear how extreme that is, right? We're literally just taking away, we're not letting the lows pass through. We're letting the highs pass through. That's why it's called a high pass filter. Or a low pass does the other thing. Lows pass through. Everybody understand that concept? So this is the next stage. This is where we're saying what signals don't need low frequency information, what signals don't need high frequency information. And we're starting to make decisions based on that question. So I'll just do some of that live and then we'll ask questions, okay? This is the piano. This is a pre-mixed track. So a lot of times these pre-mixed tracks don't have that information already, right? If I just pull up the EQ, you can see the RTA. It's already been low passed. All the lows are already been cut out of that. So I don't need to do that. It's already been done. Synth has some lows that we don't need. That's gonna muddy up. This sub is taking care of that, and the bass. So those other instruments are doing those jobs. What's up?
Why are you doing the,
Oh.
why are you low passing, high passing on this screen where the indicator is going on? Why are you doing it on the other one where you can't see the levels?
On the EQ? Because I'm just showing you guys from this screen. You could do it from either one. Yeah, I'm just specifically on filter. I haven't gotten to gain yet, which is down the line a little bit.
They don't have the indicators on just the filter screen?
The RTA, it's called an RTA, real-time analyzer. No, there's no reason. I think it's below. Maybe not.
Yeah, well, it's on the other screen too, though.
Yeah, it's on the right-hand screen, Blake. Yeah, when it comes out, here, I'll make it actually play the sounds, maybe. So here's the synth. Look at the right screen. All right.
On the Sojo board, I don't think it has multiple.
Right. But you have both on one, where you have filters. Yeah, it's the same as this screen right here, where you see it's going. Yeah.
You know, as a side note, when did you say that the youth room's going to get an SQ?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great.
I apologize.
Yeah. No, that's a fair question, honestly. Question, go ahead.
Does the signal go through the filter before it goes through the EQ? Or is it all
Yes.
Oh, you got to talk about those tabs.
It technically goes first. Yeah, the tabs are in line. You can see these tabs at the top of the screen. This is the chain of signal, right, down the line. So, yeah, technically the filters are first, but you view them here. So, yeah, your filter does affect your gate and whatever insert you got going here, but you can view them in the EQ right here. It's not critical, but I could see what you're saying, like as far as the gate goes. Let's do some gating now. Well, actually, no. We're gonna do some EQing now. That's what I have on my thing, but we probably should do gates, dude.
What's the difference between EQing then and filtering? I'm not sure I
Filter is EQ.
Okay.
They are the same concept. It's just affecting the frequencies coming in. You're just saying,
EQ is for equalization,
No, not necessarily. It's just a tool. It's just a tool that's called equalization, EQ. Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, so equalization doesn't mean creating equal frequency level across the board, because signals are different. Like you heard the kick drum, as soon as I changed the filter on the kick drum, look at, you can see there's this huge scoop right here in the signal of a kick drum, huge boost in the low end, and then some top end frequencies going on.
And that's okay.
That's totally okay. That's what a kick drum's supposed to do. That's why they have, the mic has a preset EQ inside the kick drum to enhance those frequencies for you before it even hits the board. Mics have their own response. It's called an EQ response. What's up, bro?
You were talking a little bit about goals or
Yeah, the target.
And so, like in the case of the kick drum, you may or may want to hear that, may or may not want to hear the mallet.
Yeah, the tapping,
which
the
was
ticking.
higher frequencies.
Correct.
And the lower frequencies.
Correct.
were the thud, right?
Yeah.
So that's understanding what the sound you want out of each instrument.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Do we have like a cheat sheet for like what we should be looking for?
There's a million out there. There really are. Like, you kind of want this at this level, this at this level, this louder than this quieter than this. But generally, you're asking yourself in order of importance, what's important in the mix. That's why I said drums are important. They're going to give you all the rhythmic kind of movement of the song. Ton of dynamic control in the drums. If the drums play more, just in general, it's more exciting, more intense, more action, there's more stuff going on. If they play less, the dynamics come down in the song, always. So drums have a ton of dynamic control. Do you know what I mean by dynamics? The energy, the up and down. The loudness and the softness, that's dynamics. The intensity or the lack of intensity. What's up?
Could you talk about what the frequencies are across the spectrum and what that means?
Yeah. We can go to that level. Let's go to the keys here. Maybe, yeah. So Blake's asking, like, what does this mean? What are the frequencies kind of doing? What do they each sound like? All that kind of stuff, right? All the lines. Yeah, so the lines are showing you what frequencies are coming in at what level, right? It's like a preamp level indicator, a meter that we were seeing go up and down, but for each individual little frequency. So just let it be full here. So those are the frequencies of the keys coming into the board. So I'm gonna do a EQ sweep and let you hear what it's all doing, right? If I just grab this, tighten it up. This is the bass part of the keys. You can hear it kind of thudding. So you can hear how there's different sounds. I don't know how to say it. There's different tones, feelings. It's really just like, EQ is really just like volumes of frequencies. That's all EQ is doing. How much gain is in this frequency? A frequency is a wave, right? A sound wave. How fast or how slow the sound wave is hitting the peak and the trough. How quickly. So a low frequency wave, like 20 hertz, is like 60 feet long from the top of the peak to the trough, to the bottom. It takes forever for that frequency to go up and down. 20 hertz is very slow wavelength, right? Very hertz-wise. Hertz is a speed measurement, right? Hertz. Cycles per second, thank you for the words. So you have all these different hertz, 50 hertz, 100 hertz, 200, 500. These are octave indicators, right? Doubles. So you have logarithmic scale. Thank you, math.
You're doing great, Dan.
Yeah. These are gonna turn up the longer waves or the shorter waves. So the higher you go, 2K is 2,000 cycles. Is it per second?
Yes.
Per second, yeah. 2,000 cycles per second, meaning the wave hits the peak and the trough 2,000 times in a second. Yeah, got it. So that, I know, professor over here.
From peak to peak.
Peak to peak.
Or trough.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, those low frequencies are really physically really long, right? Like 50 hertz, I think is 20 feet or 18 feet or something like that. And then if you go, no, I do know. Yeah, so that's why when you stand like you stand 5 feet from a subwoofer, it might not hit as hard as when you stand like 20 feet away from a subwoofer. You get all this stuff in your chest all of a sudden. So the closer you are to a sub physically doesn't always mean it's gonna be louder or bigger, right? That
Subs can be like anywhere in your room.
Yeah, subs are, well, very important note actually. Low frequencies, I think up to 80 hertz are omnidirectional. Omnidirectional. So your subwoofer box is right here, it just goes like this. The kick drum just goes like this, not like this, like straight. It's not a cardioid pattern. You can do that with phase cancellation. I don't want to get into all this stuff, but where waves, there's so many factors. The walls around your room. But anyway, that's why you have like at the Lehigh space, in that cave, there's tons of low end because those waves are coming through the room and cycling up in that room. Those low frequency waves. And it's not bright back there because high frequencies are very directional, very much so. So when you're standing in front of a speaker, you hear all the crispiness and the loudness, and then you get away from the front of the speaker and it gets dull and dark. That's why. Because high frequencies are very directional, low frequencies are not. So, EQ, does that kind of help Blake a little bit? Okay. So yeah, we're gonna, all the instruments are producing all these frequencies for the most part, some at very much lower volumes, some at a lot higher volumes. So mixing, well, in general, your band is set up to make sense together frequency-wise. That's why we have, bands kind of together in certain ways. What's up?
Yeah, so for EQ, kind of the way to explain it is you're taking specific, and that's taking out the gain from that specific.
Correct, yeah, EQ, yeah, you're taking down the gain of that specific frequency. You're turning down the energy in those wavelengths, in those hertz. Yeah, sorry if that was really confusing. Practically speaking, that's probably what we should talk about. Practically speaking, if you want to hear all the different instruments, you need to be aware of masking. So masking is where you have the same frequencies at the same volume from two different sources. Same frequencies at the same volume from two different sources. I'll show you like the electric guitar and the keys at the same time. So we're looking at, here's the electric guitar. It has all this like, listen how the keys go away when I turn up this area. I'll go back over to the keys RTA. See where it's loud right here at like 400? That red line is the loudest frequency. See how the electric starts to just sound fizzy? That's all you're hearing from the electric guitar is the fizzy stuff, the high frequency stuff. If I suck this out, the electric guitar will sound bigger because I'm letting it dominate those frequencies instead of the keys. So hear how we can't hear the high frequencies of the piano. There's no like chime or like physical tinging sound of the keys. All alone, you're getting this. You're hearing that, right? But when the electric plays, that goes away. Now, it's still there, right? It's not actually going away. It's just being masked and overcome by the electric guitar information in those frequencies. So this is why mixing is hard. This right here is why mixing is hard. Because you're trying to make a source sound good and not mask other things. Every instrument has its own area or multiple areas of EQ, of frequencies that it can own, right? Naturally, like I did before, it sounds good just doing the faders, right? All we've done is faders and filtering, and the mix is pretty good. It sounds fine. So naturally, this is happening because the instruments aren't similar. They're different enough. Does that make sense? It's like a symphony, right? This was figured out a long time ago. This is why the symphony has all these different sizes of stringed instruments, has horns and bells and all these different things because they all produce different frequencies. So it sounds rich and full without any microphones or EQs or anything, because those frequencies are naturally produced by those instruments. Questions?
I don't know, just jump the gun. I've mixed for about a decade, just kind of learned by trained ear when I want something higher frequency or lower frequency. But if you're just starting cold bass line,
Yeah.
so when you're seeing your bars in different frequency lengths, maybe there's more high end on instrument, more low end. If you're starting at net zero on an EQ, do you start changing EQs based on where those bars are peaking in each different frequency? So like you're
No.
on the keys, you got a wave pattern.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
To change EQ,
Like, oh, that's too loud. Let's turn that down, kind of thing.
is that how you would do it?
No, I'm just letting my ears tell me. Like always, the bars, man, that's like a blessing and a curse. Like you kind of don't want to live by that, die by that. That is only for like, oh, it's feeding back. We talked about this, it's feeding back. Ooh, here comes something, I'll do it on my mic.
Where's that peak?
You can see, right? Hey, check.
So you would pull that down, that frequency?
Yes.
Okay.
Can we see that screen?
Yeah, pull up that
Will you pull up the big screen of this? Yeah. So I'm not giving those frequencies as much energy. That's how you kill feedback. You can hear it wanting to go nuts. We'll make it go nuts for fun. That's horrible, but you know. But that's how you catch that.
Your voice is now bouncing around more in the room.
Well, yeah, I'm louder in the room. Yeah, so you're hearing the reflections off the room. Do you guys understand? We'll just go here. We'll just go here now. Feedback is called feedback because it's feeding the signal back into the mic. Out of the speakers, into the mic, out of the speakers, into the mic, out of the speakers, into the mic, out of the speakers, like around and around we go. It's just a runaway train, right? That's why feedback happens. I'm always shocked how many people don't understand like why things are feeding back. They're feeding back because the source is coming out of the speaker back into a mic. So if you're like, man, I just can't get this loud enough because of feedback, there is a certain point where you might not be able to get it loud enough because of the feedback. You just don't have any more to pull out. It's just pulled all the way out. There's nowhere else, no more less gain to get with the volume that you want. Does that make sense? This is a critical concept. So like my voice right now, I can hear it kind of wanting to feed back, like it just kind of wants to go in that area right there. And if you're like, man, I can tell it wants to, but I don't know exactly where it is, the RTA isn't super clear, it's not really telling us, you can do subtractive EQ. And this is what I always recommend to everybody. This is a technique, subtractive EQ. Instead of saying, it's just not big enough and fat enough in the low end, so I'm just gonna turn that up. You wanna say, where are my problems? Where are my problems? I hear a problem in here somewhere, so I'm gonna turn up this band and sweep back and forth until I find the exact band that is giving me the problem, like this. See how it's always that one?
So that's the source that's causing the feedback.
Yes. That frequency range, it's a little range, has the most energy in this mic and in this room and in these speakers. I'm gonna lessen the energy of that. There's just not gonna be as much gain in those frequency ranges anymore. Yeah. But if you're like, well, that sounds like booty. Now it doesn't sound good. Well, you have a PA problem, a room problem, a location problem on your stage. Sometimes you're standing too close to the speakers or whatever. You're in front of the speakers. There's different problems, right? Okay, we're getting bogged down a little bit, but it's okay once you guys get this. So in terms of EQ, we're talking about masking. Masking is why you can hear things at the same time. Go ahead, Varant.
I think at Lehigh, we have a lot of problems with the pastor's lapel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where we end up cutting.
Just everything. Yeah.
And it feels like too much,
For sure.
But that seems to be what sounds decent.
Yeah.
What's your thought process, or how would you work through that situation?
Yeah, well, I know that it works fine at Lehigh because I was there and I mixed Ben in the room and it's not really that big of a problem. You're just gonna go through with as many bands as you have available, EQ bands as you have available, preferably sitting in the seats in the room because you can hear it right off the speaker. If you're back in that booth, you can't hear it. It's just like muffly sounding. So you're gonna walk out there, turn up until you hear something go wrong. It wants to feedback right in here. And I'm just gonna cut that a little bit. Not a ton, because if it's not feeding back right away, there's no reason just to go and like kill that, because it's just gonna sound dark. It's gonna sound like this, like there's no top end frequencies. It's gonna sound dull and dim, hard to hear, right? But you can, obviously, we're getting this right away, so I'm gonna fix that problem. And my voice actually sounds natural and clear, right? That's kind of the idea. You're saying, what if I have to EQ so much the feedback out that it doesn't sound natural and clear anymore, right?
There's that, and then I think sometimes there's a tendency to get where, that yellow line showing you what.
The RTA? Yeah.
Well, the solid yellow.
Oh, yeah.
And where everything's pulled
Yeah.
down below zero, below unity.
I always just start over. If everything's pulled way the heck down, it's the same as bringing the fader down. Does that make sense? It's the same thing. It's just making it quieter all across the board. So you might as well start over and try to find the exact problems. But like I said, there's gonna be a limit to how loud it can actually get before that signal is just looping back around. Speakers, mic, speakers, mic, speakers, mic. You know what I mean? So there is a limit. You can hear on this mic, like I could get it super hot and eventually, like no matter how much EQ I do to try to figure this out and make it sound good, like it's going to want to feed back. There is a limit to how loud it's gonna get. You know what I mean? So that's why we treat our rooms and make them so that the frequencies don't bounce back and go into the mic. That's why we stand behind the speakers so that they're out there and I'm back here. You know what I mean? Those are the limits. Those are our parameters.
Whenever you're going through like the quick troubleshooting,
Yeah.
like for instance on your vocal there, you brought the low frequency way over to the middle and pulled it out.
Yeah.
And then it's just that, even though it's, what was that, like at the 700 hertz range,
Yeah.
the low,
The purple one. Yeah.
that's it.
I just did that because it's available.
That's what I was gonna say. What
It doesn't matter.
the right one to pull down?
It's just available. Yeah, these are just guides, right? Like purple's low, light blue is low mid, dark blue is high mid, red is high. Those are just kind of guides for you. Like if I reset this EQ, now they're kind of in the right spots again. They're back to red, blue, light blue, purple, and I can kind of like redo some of those moves using these controls that are closer to where they're actually supposed to be. Supposed to be is relative.
So it doesn't really matter which one you're picking there. If
No. They all do the same thing.
I learned this whenever I was actually learning EKGs.
When you're shocking people.
Describe to me like, imagine these are 4 different cameras looking at a problem, and it doesn't matter necessarily which camera you're using to look at the problem.
Sure.
So you can use the low, you can use
Yeah.
low, mid, high. That's where, as long as you're on one of those frequencies, you can give it more or take more away.
Yeah.
Just imagine it's 4 different cameras you're looking at, and you want to look at the overall with the best picture possible. So that was confusing, I think, but
Yeah. Does this make sense now?
no, it's
Okay.
makes sense. My curiosity is,
It's a good question.
why did you default and bring low?
Yeah. No, I just literally, because it's doing absolutely nothing way over here. Cam, can you show this? It's just sitting there doing nothing, you know? So might as well use it, bring it over. And maybe, here's the thing, I'm only subtracting right now, but what if I want it to be beefier in the room? Then I need to have one available. So I can't just like, all 4 are just gonna cut everything no matter. Well, then I lose the ability to give myself some more beef or chunk down here or whatever. So remember, and Earl, we've talked about this before, this filter is dropping off at a per octave rate, 24 dB per octave is what it says right there. I can make it do like 6 dB per octave. Remember we talked about the 50, 100, 200, 400, those are octave, these lines. Logarithmic, whatever, Greg. So
It just means the distance from 500
distance from 5, yeah.
to 1,000 is the same as 1,000 to 2,000.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, so this scale right here isn't, well, actually it is, right? It's showing us a perfect scale. Yeah, it's bigger. Gotcha. Yeah, these numbers are the same distance apart. Well, they're not, but they're. Oh, got it. Okay. Well, regardless, this is dropping off at a dB per octave. So you still have EQ information down here. It's just very quiet. So you can turn it up still, right? I'm kind of like counteracting it. I'm taking what's been subtracted and I'm adding in a bunch more beyond where the stuff is. Yeah, go ahead. This part, the EQing is done during rehearsal, yes. And they're just going through playing songs. I'm gonna do it in a second here, and I'll kind of show you what I'm doing and then stop and talk about it. But yeah, this is gonna be happening while music is playing. And when you're EQing, when something is soloed up like this, you're not getting the full picture. This is the keys. EQing in solo is like having chicken with nothing on it. It's like not knowing the full flavor of the chicken, right? You like
Write that down.
exactly. EQ is a tool to demask sources together. That's how you show the other stuff happening in the mix. So you don't want to EQ in solo very often. Very often. You only want to do it in solo when you're trying to fix a very specific problem, not a macro problem, right?
That's when you go back to masking, because you wouldn't know unless the keys and the electric were playing at the same time.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
You wouldn't know. Because right now, this sounds good. It's all full and big and great. And I'm like, ooh, I want this to be brighter and fuller. Maybe a little less crunch. And if I have a vocal and a piano, I might do that. Just those two to fill up the room, right? But if I have a full band, this is gonna sound terrible. This is gonna sound way too fat. It's gonna cover up all the bass stuff and all the, it's gonna do too much. So let's do some EQ real quick.
Sing hallelujah. He has been able when no one else could. Sing hallelujah. Sing hallelujah. If he's been faithful, if he's been good, sing hallelujah. Sing hallelujah. If he's been able, no one else could. Sing hallelujah. Sing hallelujah.
This is the low tom.
If he's been faithful, if he's been good, he's been faithful to all generations. We've all got a story to tell. Stories of rescue, rebirth, and redemption. We've all got a story to tell. If he's been faithful, if he's been good, sing hallelujah, sing hallelujah. If he's been able when no one else could, sing hallelujah, sing hallelujah. The redeemed of the Lord lift their voices, remember the things He has done. We've heard from our fathers and will.
Cool.
That's pretty wild how different the drums can sound just by EQ.
Just EQ.
You
Yeah.
Bass is the same way too.
Yeah. Questions about anything you saw?
So
Good.
since you're doing that from a recording, is there any risk of EQing it in such a way that you're going to get a lot of feedback in the room that you don't hear?
Yes. Great point. Yes. There's no microphones that are on. Yes. So when I was doing that vocal, this is kind of a wild EQ for the vocal, but we needed more clarity out of her voice. So I just cranked that up. High frequencies, clarity, all that stuff. That makes it sound like somebody's close to you. When somebody's far away, you don't get that like really detailed sound, and their voice sounds thinner far away, right? Sounds like this. When they're far, far away from you, hey, what? You know, when they're really close, you hear all this. That gives you perception of in your face, loud mix, right? When it's full of low end and big and, full. So yeah, you will get feedback problems if you're not super careful. Less with EQ, more with compression. We'll talk about that in a second. Because compression takes your low, quiet sounds and makes them loud. Yes, we'll talk about that in a second. Yeah, so the snare is like full of problems, right? Like, it just doesn't sound that good. The gain on the snare is actually fine. The snare mic, right? But here's without the EQ. Richard. Are you trying to take away that little prompt that you're hearing? Not really. Not really. I'm not going to be able to take away the pop altogether, just the sound of the pop. Yeah. Sure. Let's hear that again. So I did this, pulled that out, right? Pulled this out. That like honk, ho, ho, that sound. And then this, kind of boxy sounding. I don't hate that actually. We'll just leave that. But that's kind of the natural sound of the drum. That's the natural sound of the drum. Ho, 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 ho. How are we going to get through this? How are we going to get past this moment? It's fair. It's all good. Yeah.
I'm doing the process that I've like literally never done before. You're finding the sound by doing frequency scanning.
Yeah.
Going up. Okay, I don't want that. Now down.
Yes.
And finding something and then down.
Yes. Doesn't that make sense? Like, it's hard to hear it in the full mix, what's going on. But you're like, I think there's something weird about the snare. Let me go in there and find it. Instead of cranking up my volume, I like the volume. That's his order of operations. I like the volume of the snare. I just don't like that sound. So I crank it up, find it, pull it out. It's called subtractive EQ. Any other questions?
You've had enough reps and experience where you know what sounds bad. You don't ever, we have to scan, but I've watched, you don't ever have to scan. You just go right to it.
Sure, sometimes I just know, like, oh, that's kind of in that range, and it's probably that instrument. Go in and find it and pull it out. But I subtractive EQ all the time. All the time. Yeah, when there's like something hard to find, or you're just not sure or whatever. Yeah. Questions? More? What time is it? Oh, we're doing good. Cool. Gonna go to compression then.
How about a bio break real quick?
Bio break? 2 minutes? Okay, I'm gonna keep EQing while you guys do that. I've seen that. Yeah, it doesn't sound great right now. All bunch of bleed. Isn't that crazy though? No compression, no EQ, it sounds great. Yeah. Good. Totally. Your ears tell you, yeah. Pre-mixing tracks?
Yeah, well, do they not?
They just come all full, and they're close, but they're not great. All right, can we keep going? I want to make sure I talk about this. So acoustic guitar, almost all of our acoustic guitars are DI'd in. DI means direct input. It's through a box with a plug on the back of guitar with a pickup underneath the bridge, right? May, like you play acoustic, I think your acoustic has a, is yours a Taylor? Yes. And it has the like little pickups on the body, right? And the knobs are right here? Yeah. Right? Is it not? They're in the body. Oh, the knobs are here? They're not on the front of it? Yeah, like on the body of the guitar, there's 3 knobs: volume, bass, treble. So those are like sensors that are placed on the body of the guitar. It's really hard to reproduce the sound of an acoustic guitar like sitting in front of it with sensors on the body. It's like really hard. They almost never sound good. Pickups, even mics inside a guitar just don't do it. They're plugged in. When you're recording an acoustic guitar, you don't plug it in. You put microphones on it to hear the actual sound of an acoustic guitar. So to get that sound, like you'll hear this acoustic sounds really clacky and junky. That's how it sounds coming in. We're super used to this sound because this is what you hear at every concert, every live situation with acoustic. But to make this sound good, I don't need any of this low end. And I want to get rid of this huge mid-range, all of this. Just that alone sounds more real, like an acoustic guitar. And then the brilliance of the strings, the brightness. Whoops. Will. So without diamonds. But you can hear how much cleaner and less bulky that acoustic guitar sounds. An acoustic guitar is hi-hat with notes. That's all its job is in worship music. Hi-hat with notes. An acoustic guitar all by itself on stage, it needs to cover a ton more ground, right? If this acoustic guitar was, I'll show you this. Acoustic guitar and vocal performance, be way louder, way more low end.
Let the redeemed of the Lord lift their voices, remember the things he has done.
As soon as we start introducing instruments,
We've heard from our fathers and read, tell our children the wonderful things he has done. If he's been faithful,
the role of that acoustic guitar totally changes. It's no longer gonna fill up the room. It's no longer gonna be the dominant big thing in the mix, right? Think of like naturally, if there was no amplification at all and you're just standing there listening to the band, the acoustic guitar would be drowned out completely by the drums and the electric guitar amps and the big loud stuff. You kind of want to mimic that. The acoustic guitar's role is small. It's just supposed to create some like wispy rhythm during down sections. That's kind of what I was trying to tell Will at rehearsal. Like we're just trying to have you keep playing during the "He is good, His love," that part that kind of comes down. That's when you hear the acoustic guitar because everything else stops, right? Everything else comes away. So in the mix like this, let's see if we can hear it in the verse.
redeemed of the Lord lift their voices, remember
There it is.
the things he has done.
Bringing it back so you barely hear it.
From our fathers,
Barely hear it.
tell our children the wonderful things he has done.
Chorus, can't hear it.
If he's been faithful, if he's
Maybe
been
just barely.
Sing hallelujah, sing hallelujah. If he's been able when no one else could, sing hallelujah, sing hallelujah.
Let's see if we can hear it right here.
Love endures now and for eternity.
He's barely playing it. barely playing it. What's up, Barrett?
So are you trying to find like a general EQ for all songs, or are you EQing per song?
Great question. When things change, I re-EQ. Like an electric guitar patch changes, a vocalist is singing a harmony versus a lead. Drums are playing super soft. Like the last song on this set, Come As You Are, is really gentle. So you're gonna have to change things slightly, but just slightly. Like the general EQ for the day make sense. Yeah.
Because we have the ability to change cues. Did the S
Right.
have that ability?
Oh, yeah.
also? Okay.
Yeah.
Because there was some question about that 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. Good.
So question, Ben, this now is like an ear thing, but I think a lot of us have been guilty before being like, I'm looking on the stage, there's Joe playing the guitar, and in this song,
Yeah.
I'm just not hearing the acoustic much, but that mix sounds good, right? But
Right.
almost your brain like says, well, acoustic's there, I can't hear it, so it's got to go up. Why not? Why not do that?
Why does it not need to go up?
Right, yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
Why is it not good enough to just look at the stage and say, okay, see all these instruments, and well, I need to hear each of them, and
Yeah.
mix just as prominently as the other, right?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. You can do that, but like you can say, this isn't loud, I can't hear this when everything's raging. When everything's going full out, why can't I hear it? You can get it to where you hear it, but it tends to sound cheesy, like corny. It just does. Like it just sounds kind of wimpy and like uber balance creates like a cheesy sound, for lack of a better term.
You can hear everything equally.
Yes.
It just doesn't sound.
No, it's not exciting. It's not exciting.
Okay, that's what I'm going at.
Yeah, it's just not. And that way, when the bridge comes and it's down and it's quiet and the acoustic's playing, it's like a pleasant surprise. It's like, oh, it's so nice. It's just down there filling up that space. That is a taste thing, like I'll admit, but it tends to. That's when it like does its job. That's like it's time to shine. Or like intros and like verse ones and stuff like that.
And I agree. I think that's the broader question of taste. Like, how should the average volunteer who doesn't do this, for a living, like?
Yeah, you need to develop your taste.
So how do you develop your taste?
Come in and mix.
Well, I would add to that, and you shared this with me. Everyone else on stage has to listen to the set all week in practice.
Yes,
It would be
Yes.
appropriate for the engineer to listen all week to the
I
set.
totally agree with that. Yep.
Even
Yep.
if you can't mix it
I want to say that in the
exactly
mic so it gets recorded.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody needs to hear the mix, not just the musicians playing, right? So like do this. Hear the acoustic? See how you just you can kind of study how things are mixed.
And in the dynamic intro, though,
You can't hear it at all.
Right, but somebody's I can't hear the acoustic.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
That's right, yeah. It's just kind of down there doing its job. And when it's time to shine in that verse 1, there it is. It pops out because everybody else went away. That's why musicians don't play the whole time. Like this seems obvious. It's not. Musicians don't play the whole time. You should stop playing sometimes as musicians. Go ahead, Barrett.
How much coaching should we do from the board to the musicians?
Well, it's as simple. That's a great question. It's as simple as saying, hey, man, did you learn the part this week? Because we have all the parts. We're distributing the parts via planning center, rehearsal mix. Those parts are there for you. You can deviate a little bit and get creative. But when you deviate a bunch and you're just playing the whole time, it's dynamically very boring. And like if an electric guitar just playing the entire time, he has to come down in the mix. It's like, don't you want to be loud in the mix? I want to have you loud in the mix, but you're playing the whole time, so I can't have you loud because you're going to dominate everything else. You know what I mean? The acoustic guitar playing all the time basically never stops. So it's low in the mix. You know what I mean? The keys basically playing the whole time. They're pretty quiet in the mix. They're not like dominating every section. If I had the keys loud, let's just do it. he's controlling his dynamics a little bit there. Louder in the choruses, comes down in the verses. It's just cheesy.
Yes, yeah.
When it's more subtle and you can't really consciously hear it, it kind of sounds better.
Exactly. So it's coming in the verses because everything else is dropping out. The instruments that are really loud go down. They play less. Electric guitar goes clean or doesn't play or just plays single notes. Creates less weight in the mix during those sections, right? Great questions. This is awesome. Anything else? Then we'll go on to compression. Compression is amazing. It's so fun. Can I? There we go. Yeah. Most important use of compression is definitely vocals. So we'll go there. Let's talk about what it is real quick. Let's just bring up the most basic manual RMS compressor. So a compressor has like 6 tools. And this is why I think it's confusing. But generally, what a compressor is doing, it's like having somebody on a volume knob and they turn it down when it gets loud. That's the essential concept behind a compressor, right? So it's like when somebody sings real loud, they turn it, here, I'll put it in the screen. They turn it down when it gets loud, like, he has been faithful. They're gonna turn it down on that big loud section, right? And it's like they have a sensitivity meter knowing when it's gonna get loud. So they turn it down when it gets above that threshold. And it's literally called threshold right here. So we'll listen to the voice as she sings.
If he's been faithful.
This is her input gain, right? This is her output gain. In, out. If I crank this threshold down,
If he's been faithful. If he's been
coming in at this level, going out at this level, the red is how much it's reducing. It's called gain reduction.
If he's been faithful, if he's been good,
So it's all basically
sing out.
the same level here for the beginning of this section.
If he's been faithful, if he's been good, sing hallelujah, sing hallelujah.
So you see it
If
happening,
he's been able,
and it's happening at a certain ratio. It's called ratio right there. 3-to-1 means for every 3 dB above the threshold, you only get 1 back. That's the easiest way to understand it. No, you only get 1 out. So 3 dB in, 1 dB back is the easiest way to think about it. Yeah, so it'll still get louder, but at a 3-to-1 ratio, will it get louder? If I just go 2-to-1, simpler to understand, 2 dB in, you only get 1 back. So if she sings above the threshold 10 dB, it's still gonna get louder, but it'll only get louder by 5 dB, right? So this is just more turned down, more turned down, right? More aggressive. You can see the line going from 1-to-1, 1 in, 1 out. More turned down as it goes above the threshold. It's only going to turn up this much, right? 5. Infinity, it will not let it get louder. Let's listen to that. It's a limiter.
if he's been faithful, if he's been good, sing hallelujah.
So you can kind of hear like the background music come up when she stops singing, right? That's because it's recovering. It's letting the volume come back in. It's not turning down anymore. It's below the threshold. The source is below the threshold. Yeah. Correct. We're going to talk about that next. This is why you still hear some volume change.
If he's been
Let's get to a big chorus.
good, if he's been good, sing hallelujah.
You still hear that S come through. That's because it's not turning down until 4.6 milliseconds goes by. So the first 4.6 milliseconds of the signal, it's not doing anything. It's going to start turning it down at 4.6 milliseconds. If I make this really fast, 30, what is that, Greg? Microseconds?
If he's been good, sing hallelujah.
It's just happening right away. As soon as it crosses the threshold, it's turning it down. As soon as, go ahead.
So what's the use case for a longer attack time or a longer
Yeah. Anytime you want the transient to come through. A transient is the very initial start of a wave in a signal. It's that very first. It's like a snare. So anytime you want something to have an immediate sound or a loud initial transient, you would slow the attack time down. Let it go through. I'll show you. We'll go to snare. Oh, let's do the same thing. Just the snare. You know what? A kick is going to make more sense. So, if I go immediate, you're going to hear it. See that whole signal's getting turned down right away. It's not even infinity. Right? It won't let it get any louder. I slow this way down.
Now you hear that ballad.
You hear the immediate hit of the kick coming through, but it's turning down the resonance. Where a kick drum's like doo, doo, right? Lasts like half a second, 500 milliseconds, right? But if I let 55 milliseconds of the kick come through, we're gonna get that immediate attack of the kick drum. That's what creates this like smack sound. So the waveform looks like this. You guys seen when like waves get recorded in a DAW or something like that? The waveform goes like this: kick, doo, down. You know, it's going, blowing up the initial mallet and then turning it down, and then it's staying at a certain level. Now the release is how quickly it lets it come back to that level when the source goes below the threshold, right? That's the time part of this. The source is playing, boom, kick goes above the threshold, and then eventually the decay of the kick goes down below the threshold. And when it goes, after it goes below the threshold, it lets the volume return back to where it was before. Okay? So I can say, let's not go infinity. It's a crazy sound. I want it to return right away. So you actually hear it's getting right after the beater, turning it down, and then going right back up. Kind of weird sound. See this? We'll go extreme. Long release. See how you can hear the beater? Even slower. Super fast. See how long it's taken to get back? Immediate. If I slow this down, we'll let the beater come through. So super quick, tight hit. It's like 10 milliseconds, right? More beater. See how it's not really doing very much at over 150? That's because you watch the gain reduction, this red line. That's because the loudest part of the kick is at the beginning. The loudest part of the kick drum's at the very beginning of the hit, right? Good. Yeah.
So when you have a
Long, yeah, okay, yeah. Slow, yeah, slow attack.
is it so it's waiting and then
Yes.
it's listening for the threshold at
No. It hears the threshold, waits, and turns it down. Yes. Yes.
And the release is what again? I got the attack. Release is what?
So watch this over here. This is the source sound. After it goes below the threshold, and it's going a lot faster than that. That's just like an RMS signal. RMS is like an average, right? It's actually going above the threshold and back down very quickly. The release is once it passes back below the threshold, how fast is it going to turn back up? Stop turning down. How fast is it going to stop turning down? This is all super freaking technical. In practicality, what you're doing is controlling dynamics, right? The loudness, the top range of the sound to the bottom range of the sound. That's dynamics. How loud is it going to get and how quiet is it going to get? So if we go to a very dynamic sound, like a voice, honestly, probably the most dynamic thing we're going to have in our service.
If he's been good, sing hallelujah, sing hallelujah.
Watch the input.
If he's been good, now and for eternity.
Here's the first verse.
Sing a story to tell. Stories of rescue, rebirth,
So,
and redemption.
I don't know if you guys can see. That's at minus 20 input gain. Top is at like plus 6. So that's 26 dB of input gain change. Yeah, that's the range. That's a huge range. So if we want to say, instead of 26 dB of fluctuation, we only want to have like 6 dB of fluctuation. So she sits on the top of the mix the whole time, right? The lead vocal is the most important part of the mix. It's got to sit on top the whole time. So when she goes, "Our God has been faithful," that's got to be on top of the mix. Then when she goes, "If he's been faithful," that's going to be so loud, we got to turn that down. Because if we bring the quiet stuff up, then the loud stuff's going to be 26 dB higher than that. That's way too loud, right? So we're controlling it.
Story to tell.
Excuse me.
Stories of rescue,
Yeah, we'll do that right now. I'll show you.
story to tell.
So the loudest section of the song is last chorus.
He is good. His love
This is the bridge.
endures now and for
Without it.
eternity.
With it.
Oh, he is good.
It's a lot louder.
His love
So we just turned it down on the loudest part, but turning it down is not what we want to do. We want to make it sit on top of the mix. So we're going to gain it back up by the equal amount that we're cutting it out. And the easiest rule of thumb here is to go half of your gain reduction.
He is good. His love
So 10.
endures now and for eternity. Oh, he
How much it's
is
reducing.
good. His love is good. Sing hallelujah. Sing hallelujah. If he's been faithful, if he's been good, sing hallelujah. Sing hallelujah. If he's been
You're turning down the loud parts so that you can make room
Yeah.
for the lower parts to come back up.
So I'm turning down, the tippy top of my range is no longer plus 6. I've brought it down to minus 12, minus 6, right? The other way. So now I'm going to take the whole signal and bump it up. So I've gone from here to here to here.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
Reduce gain? Yeah. So we're going to go back up by 6. Here, I'll do it.
good, sing hallelujah.
So when I pop it in and out, it should be relatively the same volume.
Sounds good. Sing hallelujah. Sing hallelujah.
That's pretty good. That's like identical, right? So we're not affecting the signal down the chain. It's coming into the compressor, doing all its stuff, popping out the same level, right? Does that make sense? The lowest parts are going to be louder. Exactly.
Our God has been faithful to all generations. We've all got a story to tell.
See that? Yeah, it makes the low end of her voice sound bigger and fuller. Because that's the quiet part. That's the quiet, kind of like natural sound of her voice. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, this is just taking the whole volume. Do you see how powerful that is? Yeah. It's so powerful, man. So you're losing dynamics, but sometimes we want to lose dynamics because we create something that sustains on top of the whole mix. What's up? In this chain, it is. Sometimes the EQs before the compression, it doesn't matter either way. It's just a thought process. Like, okay, well now I'm going to EQ my compressed sound. Or I'm going to compress my EQ'd sound. It doesn't really matter. I like to EQ a compressed sound, personally. For vocals particularly. It's on certain things. But again, it doesn't really matter. I wouldn't get too hung up on that. Questions about compression? Yeah.
Can you just go across the instruments and how much you might use a compressor?
For sure, yeah. Kick drum, I like to compress a little bit.
Our God has been faithful to all generations.
Right now it's a ton. At a really slow attack, I like the sound of the beater coming through. So this is gonna be the loudest compression in like the intro or loudest signal. -8 or something. So I'll go by 4. You can really hear that smack. Really hear that smack, right? Because it's letting the smack go through. It's the loudest part of our signal now. Snare. In a perfect world, you'd compress the crap out of the snare. The crap. Because it sounds awesome. But watch what this does. So 5 dB. Snare's not even playing. That's the tom. No snare. That's the freaking tom. So when you do this with an open mic on a snare, you turn up everything else. All the quiet volume is coming up by 2.5 dB. So you're turning everything else up. So a snare needs a gate. We'll just do that now. We need to do a gate before the time is up. So a gate is letting the signal turn on. Think of a gate opening and letting stuff come through. So you have a threshold. At what volume am I going to let it turn on, right? So I'm looking for this to spike when the snare hits. That's doing a pretty good job already, right? And it's taking my whole volume down by 20. See that 20? It's taking everything down by 20 and then opening it back up to 0 when the threshold is crossed. Our threshold's at 2.5, minus 2.5. So this signal has to get up over 2.5 before that 20 dB goes back to 0 and lets the signal come through. What's up? Changes per drummer, changes everything. Everything. But this is why your gain is so important. Going back to gain staging, it has to be a healthy level of gain or your gate is going to be all wacky. So it opens at a certain speed. It holds open for a certain amount of time, and then it turns back down at a certain speed. Opens at a certain amount of time. How long does it take for that gate to open? Right? Holds open, and then closes at a certain amount of time. Right? This is opening really fast, 106 microseconds. And then holding open. Make it hold open for a long time. And then turning down. This is a weird one, but just to demonstrate. Right? So that snare is actually only making sound for like maybe 100 milliseconds. Maybe longer. 150. You hear what I'm talking about? It doesn't need to be open for very long, but it sounds really unnatural if it just goes and closes. So we'll slow that down. Really low. Right? You hear it go. So that's kind of in the ballpark right there. But I think when we get to certain areas where he plays soft, like let's just listen to it. Richard, is the snare ever played softly? Variant? Yes. Ghost notes are soft. This doesn't let ghost notes through, right? We just don't have it. So you're making a compromise. Like, what do you want to hear? Do you want to get all the ghost notes? Then you have to have a really clean source, no other bleed coming in. Or you find out, this is like 2.0 gating. You go to your EQ. The loudest part of my snare is right here, this red line. What, 170 hertz? You can say, hey, gate, only listen to 170 hertz.
Oh, to turn the gate on and off?
Yes.
That frequency.
That volume of that frequency. So it's even more specific. See how you still hear a ton of cymbal? We're out of luck, dude. We're out of luck. It's not a great sound. It's not a great source, right? So we can EQ out those cymbals, but we'll lose all the snap of our snare. There's no more snare. This is why we have a trigger. Here's with the trigger. It's the trigger. It's too quiet. I'm just gonna use the makeup gain like Earl was talking about. Give us like 10 more dB of gain. Turn it on, how about? Why can't I just pick the right part of the song? So here's no trigger. Still cymbals, but not bad. In the mix. Can't even hear our snare anymore because we've EQ'd all the snap out. It's not even opening the gate. So I have to turn that gate down, threshold down. Watch. It's all the way up. The snare is all the way up.
I hear the toms over the snare.
So I can gain it up. So if I push the trigger, we're gonna get the brightness back out of the snare. So here's our snare gate, and you can see when he's playing the toms, it's not opening.
We've all got a story to tell.
So this gives me more specifics. It gives me more control over what opens the gate. So you can actually let those toms play,
We've all got a story.
turn the threshold down right before the toms get to it.
Stories of rescue, rebirth, and redemption. We've all
That'll open it, right?
got a story to tell. If he's been faithful, if he's been good, sing hallelujah, sing
Listen, no trigger to that part. It's awful.
faithful. If he's been good, sing hallelujah.
Because our snare sounds really booty.
Yeah.
Because we have to suck all the cymbals out of it. So the idea is finding the balance, like how much cymbals can I let in? I'm not going to use the trigger because no one else has the trigger, so we'll just go without it. To get enough snare in the mix now, we have to be aware, like how much high end can we let through that signal
Before the cymbals start.
before the cymbals start.
Redeemed of the Lord, lift their voices, remember the things He has done. We've heard from our fathers and will tell our children the wonderful things He has done. If He's been faithful, if He's been good.
I'm going to mute and unmute the snare, and you can hear the cymbals come in and out.
Redeemed of the Lord, lift their
This is fine. This is no cymbals, right?
We've heard from our fathers and will tell our children the wonderful things.
Okay, we're getting off our vocal a little bit, but compressor-wise, you hear how you can actually get her to come out in this full full verse, right?
Redeemed of the Lord, lift their voices, remember
Here's without it.
things He has done. We've heard from our fathers and will tell our children
There she is.
wonderful things He has done. If He's been faithful, if He's been good, sing hallelujah, sing hallelujah. If He's been able, no one else could.
So that compressor is like dialed right now because it's letting her verse be loud and her chorus getting turned down. We're shrinking the dynamic range, turning it up, right? It can start to sound a little unnatural, and that's why we have parallel compression on this board, where you can mix in the dry signal where you have the fluctuation as well as the compressed signal. Here, I'll show you.
Redeemed of the Lord, lift their voices, remember the things.
No compressor, it's all the way out.
We've heard from our fathers and will tell our children the wonderful things He has done.
So it's keeping that loud, or it's keeping that dry, uncompressed signal in there and letting it be a little more alive. That's really all it's doing. Letting us have a little more, when the singer gets into it, it will actually get into it. It'll actually get louder. Instead of like, they're just like giving all their guts they got, and it's not changing. You know what I mean? That's what a compressor does. What's up?
You recommend first asking the vocalist, like, hey, can you be less dynamic? Or do you default to trying to address it in the compressor?
I try not to tell the singer to change what they're doing unless you absolutely have to, first of all. But yes, I tell singers to like keep the physical mic touching their lips the entire time. So they're used to going like this. He has been faithful. Like that. That's good if you don't have a good compressor, good EQ, and all that kind of stuff. If you're just working with a mic in a room. But when we have all these tools, it doesn't make sense. We want to hear you the whole time. We want to be able to control that. So I tell them touch the mouths on their lip, or touch the mic on their lips as much as they can, and we'll do the rest. Does that make sense? I mean, they can sing quieter and softer, but that's just natural. That's just going to happen. What's up?
So we're using pretty much RMS compressors, but we also have peak limiters, right? So if
Yeah.
you make a RMS into a peak limiter, what's the difference in what you use in each one?
Yeah, we have all these other compressors in here. We'll just pull that up because I love that. It says peak limiter 76. This is like a reproduction of an 1176 Universal Audio unit, like a physical unit that lived in Iraq from back in the day. And they have super fast attack, and they tend to sound different. This one is like crunchier and like mid-rangier. It like gives your sound a quality versus the other one is colorless, has no change in the sound, right? So this acts the same, it just has a fixed threshold. So the threshold is just sitting there, and the input right here, you turn the volume up into the threshold, and then there's an output to turn it, to gain match like we were before.
Redeemed of the Lord.
Here's your meter.
Lift their voices, remember the things he has done.
Go crazy with it.
We've heard from our fathers and will tell our
Attack less time, so you turn it down.
redeemed of the Lord. Lift their voices, remember the things he has done.
So I just have to listen to match.
We've heard from our fathers and will tell our children the wonderful things he has done. If he's been faithful, if he's been good.
This is ratio, 4-1, 8-1, 12. Yeah, you can use that if you want. I think it's great. What I like about this compressor is super fast attack. Super fast attack.
That's not standard on the boards already, though.
No, that's why I wasn't using it today.
Do they
You don't need it. You
model-
do not need it. What's up?
Do the SQs have model different
Yep.
compressors or just one?
Yep.
Oh, they do.
South Jordan has stuff.
Is this like Apple, where you can share your program with other family members?
I wish. Okay, let me talk about something. You just made me think of something. Preset, library, EQs, compressors, stuff like that. I hate that stuff. I never like to use that stuff because there's always variance. There's always change. Maybe the only time I could see using it, and Trent, you've made this case, is a general starting point. Like if I pull up their general profile under library, you can go like this, like you select a channel and under, is it here? Is it? Yeah, so this has some from like way back in the day. Joe McCann, like this is like Paul Roby stuff. Delete all, yes. Anyway. So does the reason why make sense? Because you're gonna get, if you do a preset EQ, well, what happens if they're playing a different acoustic guitar? What happens if they're playing with a different electric guitar player? Now their EQ all of a sudden doesn't make sense. What if they have a cold that day? Now the compressor doesn't make sense. What if they, their voice is drier than usual? Now the EQ doesn't make sense. It's just not helpful. You need to let your ears tell you this change needs to be made. This needs to be different. That kind of stuff. Does that make sense? So don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. If you have the skills and understand how EQ, compression, you understand how it works, you can do it all in the moment, Where I see people going wrong, and this is the reason I started with just faders, biggest mistakes made, trying to use all the tools all the time. Like, oh, that doesn't sound beefy enough, I'm just gonna crank up the low end. no, now the thing is gonna feed back, or it's gonna clip your subs, or it's gonna have all these problems. Just feather it in, bling, just like a little bit. A little bit can go a long way, for sure. Or my bass and my kick live in the same area and they're masking all the time. The kick fundamental big, huge, fat frequency is like 55, let's just say. I'm gonna take 55 out of the bass, right? So I'd go to the bass channel and just bring 55 down a little bit. Just a tight little scoop. That way, 55 on the bass is down, 55 on the kick is up. You're gonna hear the kick down there, and the bass you're gonna hear everywhere else. Does that make sense? General little moves can change everything. I mean, that's why I wanted to show you guys the faders only mix and how good that can sound just right out of the gate. Compressors just solve problems. That's all you're trying to do, trying to solve a problem. Can I hear this thing that I need to hear all the time? Or is the acoustic guitar player just all over the place, finger picking some songs, strumming his guts out different songs? Well, I want the compressor to kind of just rein that all in and only get a certain volume. I'm not going to let him get louder than this blank spot. You know?
So on Thursday night, you've hammered this home today, right? Gains are the most important thing because we're recording, right? We're not going to go, after we record it, if we're going to mix from that recording, you can't mess with the gains after that. Right?
Yeah, that's one reason. There's a bunch,
among others. But even if it just doesn't sound great Thursday, and you come in on a Saturday or something.
Right. Mix it.
And then your faders. But you've got settings from the previous week and the week before that.
Yeah.
And whatnot. So do you come in and just wipe out all the EQs and everything?
Not every week. Depends on how much time I have. Yeah. Like it's nice to just spend like a half hour getting a snare like perfect. Yeah. That's fun. I love that. I don't always have that much time. And the snare, like the drums at each campus are going to be close every single week. They're going to be really close. They don't move. We're not bringing them into a venue and out and changing the mic locations and the drum heads, and very rarely do they change a bunch, you know? So they just got to be close. And then you can come in and tweak. Oh, this guy smacks the snare. Okay, well, that's going to change the gain, which is going to change everything down the line of the gain, right? Subtly. Vocals, man, redo every week. Every week. They're completely new. But you get to the point where you're like, okay, I came in and this person has this EQ already and there's somebody else new on the board or on that mic. Well, they're just way more breathy and they have way more S's to their voice, so I can just turn this down a little bit and we're there, right? I just turn that high shelf down. And that's all I really need to do. Oh, it's a little less thick, so I can turn up this low or this low mid or let a little bit more low through, right? So I'm just solving little problems as I go, that kind of stuff. Anyway, I think I had this till 11, so we can be done. But if you guys have any questions, let's do those now while I'm still standing here. Go ahead.
I played around with Sidechain in the bass, and it never sounds good. Is there a place for that?
With the kick? Yeah, let's do it real quick. That's fun. That's fun stuff. Do you guys know what he's talking about? Sidechaining the bass is saying, I'm going to have the compressor listen to a different input, not the input that's on that channel, not the source that's on that channel. So I want the compressor to listen to the kick drum. That's right. Did I pass it? Right there. Compressor, listen to the kick drum on the bass.
Now,
right?
Before you start, why would you do this?
Because it turns down the bass when the kick hits. So they don't,
Bring the kick out more?
the kick will come through. So I'll turn it off. We'll do it without it. See the low end of the kick? It's kind of masked a little bit. So here's with it in, and you can see the input of the compressor That's the kick drum. Listen to that kick now. When that kick hits, it's like right in your face, dude. So that's a simple way to do it. That's the basic kind of stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it just makes it feel like the bass cuts in and out.
It's just got to be the right settings. Yeah, like how fast it comes back. Let's listen to the mix. I have it on a pretty subtle, yeah. So I would only do it real subtle, but you can really, I mean, even that isn't that, it's not that bad. And that's reducing by like 18 dB. But it's fast. It's in and out really fast, right? Without it. Yes. Yeah, you're moving the bass out of the way, turning it down just really quick and back up whenever the kick drum plays. All the boards have that. That's really basic. It's not super basic, but it's like available for everybody. Yeah. Next level is to make a dynamic EQ turn down. So you compress just a range of a signal from another source. No. So this is extra credit. But you can say, this range of the bass, turn down when you hear the kick. Did I pass it again? External. Listen with the kick.
You're pulling out, what, 500 hertz worth of,
Yeah, big old range. Yeah.
being that the loudest part of the kick is 55, would you narrow?
Yeah, you could. Yeah. I think you can do it over here. Yeah. You can do it just on this guy.
Oh, okay, yeah, right. Yep.
So this is 2 units.
So you'd rather do
Just
that
turn these
one
off.
rather than narrowing it on the,
Maybe.
on the top one?
Yeah, maybe. Like this. We have to say external. Fast. You can see the kick.
Well, that's a neat effect.
Cool, dude. That's cool. That's cool. Well, I was going to go to lunch
I'm in.
if you guys want to come. Kind of on an Astro Burger kick, but it gives me bad gas, dude. So maybe I shouldn't do that. Oh, stop the recording.